I had to secure my babies.
Your children, they were at the home?
Yeah, Spirit loved that man. Anyway, any move he made, he knew that. That baby was on that man's heels. Do you hear me? He could have killed my baby, man.
Let's take the jury out.
He didn't give a damn. I trusted him about my kids. I could have never done that to him. I have never disrespected his house, ever.
You shot and killed your ex-boyfriend, Linnell Moore, in your apartment, and your children, his two children, you and his two children were in that apartment at that time. Is that correct?
No. I mean, I shot him, but I didn't kill him there. So no, he didn't die at my apartment, Mr. Portman. But I did shoot him there.
He died from that gunshot.
He died from the gunshot wound. That is correct. He died from a few other components.
I'm sorry.
He died from a few other components, but yes, initially from the gunshot wound. That's right. Yeah.
He died from you shooting him.
But you can make that assessment. I mean, you can make that assessment.
I can make that assessment.
You can.
I'm not trying to harass you. I am the media. I'm here to get information. Correct.
The answer is no, 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 no. You got it?
Okay. Thank you.
Well, what you're hearing there is Napoleon Edwards, aka the Cipher voice, telling Banks he will bust him in the face. Banks walked away from the confrontation. The incident happened yesterday during a special city council meeting to talk about the city's garbage collection concerns.
It's important to note that the evidence that was introduced at trial was evidence that showed that William Edwards was on the scene at the time of the murder. It's important to note that the bullets found on Mr. Edwards when he was captured were the same caliber bullets found at the crime scene. The same caliber bullets also found at his apartment. It's important to note that the evidence is still overwhelming that Mr. Edwards committed this crime. And most importantly, it's important for the public to know that the Hinds County District Attorney's Office will not stop. We will try this lawsuit again. We will get a conviction, and we will not stop until justice is done.
We can't continue to go this way. We can't continue to allow Jackson, Mississippi to be at a higher rate per murder capital than Chicago. We don't have black fathers. We don't have strong black male figures. We don't have a moral code or a moral map. So we really have some work to do. And we really have some deep discussions that we have to have. People, we gotta come together. We gotta get down to the nitty gritty, and we gotta implement real change. Time is running out, just like it is on the show tonight.
Listen, when a man spends years on the radio talking about what the community needs, and then allegedly kills the exact type of person he said could save it, make it make sense. This is the story of William Edwards, the loudmouth radio host who preached about strong black leadership, while possibly gunning down one of the strongest leaders Jackson and Mississippi had. You're tuned in to Unheard Cries TV, where we tell the stories that need to be heard. This case, it's got everything. Fake activists, real heroes, corruption, jealousy, and a woman whose house seems to be where good men go to die. But hey, let me not get ahead of myself. Jackson, Mississippi, the capital city, sitting pretty on the Pearl River with all that Southern charm and history. But like underneath all that beauty, the politics been messy as hell for years now. We talking about county meetings turning into straight-up WWE matches, supervisors getting dragged out in handcuffs, and grown folks arguing about everything from trash collection to train station names like their lives depend on it. And right in the middle of all this chaos was one man who made it his business to be everybody's business, William Irvin Edwards. Now, this brother went by more names than a con artist. On Facebook, he was Napoleon. On his radio show, The Cipher Voice, he called himself The Cipher. His friends knew him as Polo. And his enemies, they had a special name for him, the Gut Bucket. Girl, that should have been the first red flag right there. So Polo built himself up as this community activist. You know, fighting crime and corruption in Jackson through his little liberal action committee he called the Cipher. He had thousands of followers on social media broadcasting live to what he claimed was 149 countries. Every night he'd sit there, with his bottles of liquor lined up like soldiers talking about what was wrong with Jackson and what needed to be fixed. We can't continue to go this way. We can't continue to allow Jackson, Mississippi to be at a higher rate per murder capital than Chicago. We don't have black fathers. We don't have strong black male figures. We don't have a moral code, a moral map. Now, let me tell you something. The man wasn't wrong about Jackson's problems. The murder rate was through the roof. The community was struggling and kids needed positive role models. But here's where it gets interesting. While Polo was running his mouth about solutions, he never seemed to actually implement any. He was more concerned with exposing other people's dirt than getting his hands dirty doing the real work. And trust me, this man loves some drama. In 2016, Polo decided to go after Pastor Roderick Richardson because they disagreed about who should be mayor. But instead of just stating his political opinion like a normal person, Polo took it to another level. He went on his show, claiming he had inside information from church members, accusing the pastor of being inappropriate with someone he called a little girl. The pastor was having none of it.
He said that we were stealing money. He said that I was messing with little girls and all of these other types of allegations, which of course were unsubstantiated.
Polo got charged with felony slander and found guilty. 5 years in prison. That's serious time for running your mouth. But here's the thing that would become Polo's pattern. He appealed the conviction and won on a technicality. The court said his First Amendment rights had been violated. According to Pastor Richardson, that victory went straight to Polo's head.
It empowered him because he presented it in a way as if he fought it and won, but it was a simple mistake made by the district attorneys at the time. It gave him a sense of being untouchable.
Untouchable. Remember that word because it's going to be important later. But if you thought Pastor Richardson was Polo's biggest target, you'd be wrong. The man who really got under the Cipher skin was Hans County Supervisor David Archie. Now, David Archie was a piece of work himself, throwing tantrums at meetings, getting handcuffed and dragged out of chambers, the whole 9 yards.
That's this morning. The meeting ended quickly today after the president and 2 other supervisors walked out following several loud outbursts from that man, Supervisor David Archie.
Archie was handcuffed and escorted out, but interim Sheriff Marshawn Chrysler decided not to book him. He will be charged with 5 misdemeanors: disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, preventing the people's business from being conducted, destruction of county public property, and resisting arrest.
I did not break any laws. He instructed the sheriff to place me under arrest. They want to say that I resist. I didn't resist. I was bracing myself so I don't get hurt.
But Polo made criticizing Archie his full-time hobby. Every night on the Cipher Voice, it was Archie this, Archie that. And Polo wasn't just criticizing the man's politics. He was digging into his personal life, his past, anything he could find to drag him through the mud.
Last week, David had a tantrum, beating the gavel, acted a fool, and I've asked David twice to come on this show. I've asked David Lee, matter of fact, I'll come to you, Mr. Supervisor. You know, you go everywhere else, but let's sit down and have a real conversation. All right, let me sit down and interview you, Mr. Archie. And he has declined. And in the next upcoming election, the citizens of Hinds County are going to take care of the business of the citizens. They go vote out David L. Archie, they go vote out Robert Graham, and they go vote out Credell Calhoun.
Things escalated in August 2020 when Polo made a statement that would come back to haunt him on his radio show talking about Archie and 2 other supervisors.
I'm going to shoot that 50 caliber at all 3 of them. I'm going to line them sun guns up, and I'm going to execute all 3 of them with information, news that you can use.
Now, hold up before you start thinking this man just threatened to murder 3 people on live radio. Polo quickly added with information, news that you can use. So, he claimed he was talking about shooting them with information, not bullets. But David Archie wasn't trying to hear all that. He called the police chief and the DA's office directly and had U.S. Marshals arrest William Edwards for cyberstalking. The arrest was controversial as hell.
My place of employment, which is WPBQ on I-55 Front Road, about 7:35 when I pulled up and exited.
AM or PM?
PM. When I got ready to exit the vehicle, several SUVs blocked me in and got out with weapons drawn. They were all U.S. Marshals. They told me to put my hands up in the air. I complied and handed him both of my cell phones. He searched my vehicle, didn't find anything. I asked him what I was being arrested for. He said for cyber stalking. I said, cyber stalking? Are you serious? I said, well, why is the U.S. Marshal here? He says, we received this from James Davis.
Polo's lawyer argued that threatening to execute someone with information wasn't a crime. Williams actually said that he believed he would have them lined up as a firing squad and throw information at them that he has gathered. Information, not bullets, not daggers, not stakes, not knives, nothing that could physically hurt or harm a person's body, but information.
Williams actually said that he believed he would have them lined up as a firing squad and throw information at them that he has gathered. Information, not bullets, not daggers, not stakes, not knives, nothing that could physically hurt or harm a person's body, but information. If you don't like what Mr. Williams said, I suggest you don't shake his tree and eat his peaches. Amen. Turn the station and try another station.
But here's where Polo really stepped in it. Along with that threat, he presented what he claimed were court documents proving David Archie was a convicted felon with a sexual battery charge. The paper showed a guilty plea and everything. There was just one problem. The documents were for a different David Archie, born in 1985. The supervisor was born decades earlier. Either Polo didn't bother to verify the information, or he knew it was wrong and didn't care. Either way, he had just publicly accused an elected official of being a sex offender based on completely false information.
In 2004, 2007, he got a charge of sexual battery. Wow. He got a charge of sexual battery and got indicted on it. Entered the plea of guilty. What kind of strings he put? Pled guilty, 10 years MDOC, suspended 5 years probation, no victim contact. That's your supervisor, David Archie.
When reporters confronted Supervisor Archie about these allegations, the man lost his mind. And honestly, who could blame him?
That my life was threatened by an individual of this city. He threatened to execute me along with others. The person's name is William Edwards. And at that point, I immediately picked up the phone to call the chief of police, to call the sheriff, as well as the district attorney. And I thank all of them for being involved in this matter.
The back and forth got heated real quick, with Archie getting more and more agitated as the reporter kept pressing for clarification. Truth was, David Archie had been arrested in Georgia on a sexual battery charge in 1996, but the case was dropped. He'd also had a domestic violence charge in Mississippi that didn't lead to conviction, but the documents Polo presented weren't about him at all.
There are some information that he stated about me that were true.
What is that?
I don't have a problem with I want you to find that information. I want you, all I'm saying is that I want you to do the same that the citizens have done. I mean, I've just told you that I've not been
convicted.
charged.
I asked, have you ever been charged? You said you're not a convicted felon, and you used the word convicted several times. So I asked, just to clarify, have you been charged? Now, my colleague here just asked, are there other things that's been put out?
I'm going to tell you again.
Tell us again.
Since you want to act like you want to harass me.
I'm not trying to harass you. I am the media. I'm here to get information. Correct.
The answer is no, 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 no. You got it?
Thank you.
Well, I guess all I would ask, sir, I understand you told us to go find it, but you're here right now. Can you just tell us?
I'm going to tell you again, and I don't want you to ask me that anymore.
Okay.
I want you to do your job.
Always.
And provide that information to the public.
Moving on, Polo and his wife filed a lawsuit against the city of Jackson, the mayor, police chief, and David Archie for what they claimed was malicious prosecution and abuse of power. To his supporters, Napoleon Edwards was a freedom fighter exercising his constitutional rights. To everybody else, he was a bully who used social media as a weapon. And that's the thing about bullies. They always think they're untouchable until they're not.
This is about the fact that this platform has been built on truth. Not one time have we talked about something, exposed someone, pulled the covers back off of anybody, that it was not the truth.
When we put misinformation out, there is somebody that's all they thrive on is misinformation. And we gotta be careful because that's what's happening in our community right now. We got a lot of people that have misinformation. And I'd rather you have no information than misinformation. All right?
But while all this political drama was playing out, there was another man in Jackson taking a completely different approach to community activism. His name was Robert Davis, but everybody called him Bobby. And unlike Polo, Bobby wasn't just talking about change. He was being the change. Now, let me tell you about Bobby Davis. While Polo was sitting behind his computer with his bottles of liquor, talking about what Jackson needed, Bobby was out in the streets actually being what Jackson needed. 45 years old, founder of the Better Men Society, an organization that mentored young men and helped steer them away from the streets. And when I say this man was beloved in his community, I mean beloved. This wasn't some fake activism for social media clout. Bobby was literally saving people from burning houses and cars, volunteering at reading programs in schools, feeding the homeless, helping with hurricane relief, and cleaning up abandoned buildings around the city. Just a week before he died, Bobby and his organization joined Police Chief James Davis for a march against crime in Jackson. Listen to what this man was about.
I tell mothers all the time, if you give me your young men, I'm going to give you some success back. These young men, they seem to know where the drug dealers are because the drug dealers are in their faces. The guys with the guns are in their faces. Like they see these guys on a day-to-day basis. So in the Better Men Society, we try to make ourselves just as visible.
Feeding the homeless, visiting the sick, and cleaning up abandoned buildings are just a few activities they take part in.
We go into the schools and read to the kids. We provide security for mom and pop stores. And for small churches who can't afford security, we help guys get their GEDs and provide jobs for young men. And we do basically anything positive that we can get our hands on.
But see, Bobby understood the streets because he'd been in them. Born and raised in Verdant Addition, he grew up around drugs, gangs, and violence. At 11 years old, he joined a gang himself. Looking back on that time, Bobby said not having a positive male role model had canceled out his chances of escaping that situation. He loved his mother and listened to her, but as a kid, he was drawn to the streets. That experience is what drove everything Bobby did as an adult. He became the positive male figure he wished he'd had growing up. And that's real activism, you know, not just talking about problems, but becoming part of the solution. So now we got two men in Jackson, both trying to help their community, but in completely different ways. One was all mouth, the other was all action. And unfortunately, their paths were about to cross in the worst possible way. The woman at the center of this whole mess was Shadow Robinson, single mother, successful real estate businesswoman who worked with contractors to fix up and flip properties. And somehow both Bobby and Polo ended up in her orbit. According to Shadow, she wasn't romantically involved with Bobby, though she believed he wanted more than friendship. They'd met through her business dealings, and Bobby would sometimes help out with things around the house. But Shadow had been romantically involved with somebody else. William Edwards, a.k.a. Polo, a.k.a. the Cipher. Now, let me tell you something. When Shadow ended that relationship with Polo, Homeboy did not take it well at all. She said he became obsessive and jealous, showing up at her house unannounced with treats for her children, knowing she wouldn't turn him away in front of the kids. He was stalking her, following her around, and getting jealous of any man she spent time with, including Bobby Davis. The text messages between Shadow and Polo told the whole story of their toxic relationship. For 3 years, he'd been sliding into her DMs on social media, liking everything she posted, commenting on everything, messaging her constantly. She ignored him for 3 years straight, but eventually responded when he told her his wife had filed for divorce. By spring 2022, Shadow was done with the whole situation. She'd broken things off, but Polo wasn't letting go. The messages showed her telling him to stop following her, stop showing up at her house. But he kept sending texts proclaiming his love and expressing his jealousy about other men in her life. The night before everything went to hell, Polo had sent a bunch of messages that Shadow left on read. He even sent her a photo of the two of them together from months earlier, a picture he'd taken while she was sleeping. She didn't even know he'd taken it, but it was his final message that should have been a warning to everybody. You're going to wish you played this game on someone else. Girl, when a man tells you that, believe him. May 1st, 2022. Bobby had been at church that morning, then delivered food and supplies to a family in need. Around 3:00 p.m., he showed up at Shadow's house on Hannah Drive with groceries, offering to cook for her and the children since she was behind on work. Now, here's where the story gets interesting, because according to Shadow, she was in her bedroom around 5:00 p.m. when she saw Polo pull up in a black Ford pickup truck. She went to the kitchen where Bobby was cooking, making cornbread, she said, and asked him why Polo was in her driveway. Bobby told her not to worry about it, that he'd handle it, and apparently he went to answer the door. What happened next? Shadow heard from the back of the house, gunshots over and over. She said she started yelling, "Robert, Robert, Robert," thinking at first that maybe he was the one doing the shooting since he'd been moving around in the pantry and might have brought a gun in with the groceries. But when Shadow made it to the front hallway, she saw something that would haunt her forever. Bobby Davis was face down in the doorway, and standing over him was William Polo Edwards with a gun in his hand. According to Shadow, she watched Polo put the gun in his waistband and run to his truck before driving off. Then she called 911, and when they asked who did it, she gave them a name without hesitation. William Edwards. Bobby Davis had been shot 9 times. 9 times. The community leader who dedicated his life to saving young black men from violence was gunned down in a doorway. And the only witness was a woman with her own complicated past. But here's the thing that makes this case so messy. The police didn't treat this like a typical murder investigation from the jump. When the lead detective heard Polo's name mentioned in the 911 call, he actually thought Polo might have been the victim, not the suspect. So instead of rushing to arrest him, they called his cell phone to check if he was okay. Polo answered. They had multiple phone conversations arranging for him to turn himself in, which he said he would do once his attorney was available. But instead of coming to the station, Polo took an unexplained road trip north, then south to New Orleans, where he was finally arrested days later. Days later, let that sink in. The alleged murderer was allowed to take a little vacation to Louisiana before turning himself in. Meanwhile, Bobby Davis was dead. Shadow Robinson was giving her statement to police, and the community was trying to process how their most vocal activists could be accused of killing their most effective activists. But the more investigators dug into this case, the more questions started emerging. And some of those questions weren't just about Polo Edwards. They were about the woman who claimed to witness everything. Because as it turned out, Bobby Davis wasn't the first man to die in Shadow Robinson's house, not by a long shot. So now we got a murder scene, a missing suspect who's on a road trip, and one witness whose story is about to get real complicated. When investigators finally got around to processing the crime scene, and I say finally because they gave Polo days to get his story together, they found 6 spent shell casings and identified 2 different brands of ammunition. 2 bullets that killed Bobby came from the same 9mm firearm, but the other 7, the analysis came back inconclusive. 3 days after the shooting, they searched Shadow's house. Now, remember, Shadow told police there were no guns in the house. And with her criminal record, she was legally banned from owning one. But guess what? They found 9mm ammunition. When they tested it, it didn't match the bullets that killed Bobby. But still, why you got ammunition in your house if you can't legally own a gun? They also found Bobby's cell phone sitting on a shelf in Shadow's closet. She'd had it for 3 whole days and never mentioned it to police. When asked about it later, Her response was basically, they didn't ask, so I didn't tell them. Girl, what?
But you owned ammunition.
No, I never owned ammunition.
There was ammunition in your house.
I have a house full of children, adult children. I had children there.
So the house full of children, there was, as I recall, in this case, when the police searched your house, they found a 50-round, 9mm round drum clip for a 9mm gun. That was your drum?
No.
Well, which child was it?
My adult son.
And who is your adult son?
Oh, you would know him.
Did you tell the police you didn't know where Robert Davis's cell phone was?
If they didn't ask, I wouldn't respond, so no.
Was Robert Davis's cell phone in your house?
Later on, I found it there.
Later on when?
When me and my attorney came back from giving a statement.
That same day?
The same evening.
Okay, and so did you call the police and tell them, I've got Robert Davis's cell phone, y'all want it?
No, they didn't ask about it. I'm thinking about that, no.
They came back and found that, they searched your house and found that cell phone a couple of days later, didn't they?
They did.
And where was the cell phone when they found it?
In my closet.
The search of Polo's house in Jackson turned up a 9mm gun case with 4 live rounds inside, but no gun. They also searched that black Ford pickup he'd been driving, the one registered to a friend. Inside the truck, more 9mm rounds, but the actual murder weapon never found. Here's the thing, though. They didn't have much physical evidence, but they had something almost as good: cell phone tower data. See, Polo claimed he was at home in Jackson all evening on May 1st, but his cell phone told a different story. The data showed his phone leaving Jackson just after 5 p.m. traveling toward Clinton. The last connection before the shooting placed his phone just 4 blocks away from Shadow's house, 4 minutes before Bobby was killed. Then, 1 minute after Shadow's 911 call, a surveillance camera at the Fun Time Skate Land captured a black Ford pickup truck speeding away from the area. Same truck Polo had been driving. So, yeah, the cell phone data wasn't exactly a smoking gun, but it was pretty close. When this case finally went to trial in summer 2023, the defense had one main argument. William Edwards was being set up, and the real killer was the only witness, Shadow Robinson. And honestly, after learning about Shadow's history, that argument started making some sense. Defense attorney Tom Forner didn't pull any punches during cross-examination. First, he questioned Shadow's timeline of events. She claimed Polo put the hot gun directly into his waistband after firing 9 shots. But anybody who's ever handled a firearm knows that barrel would be scorching hot. You'd have burn marks for sure. Then came the bombshell that changed everything about this case. Turns out Bobby Davis wasn't the first person to be shot and killed in Shadow Robinson's home. In 2001, Shadow had shot and killed her ex-boyfriend Leno Moore in her apartment. His 2 children were present during the incident. The circumstances were eerily similar. Shadow claimed self-defense, said there had been a 40-minute physical altercation between Leno and her current boyfriend. But responding officers found no signs of a struggle, no broken furniture, no damaged walls, nothing to indicate any kind of fight had taken place.
In 2001, you shot and killed your ex-boyfriend, Leno Moore, in your apartment, and your children, his 2 children, you and his 2 children were in that apartment at that time. Is that correct?
No. I mean, I shot him, but I didn't kill him there. So no, he didn't die at my apartment, Mr. Porter. But I did shoot him there.
He died from that gunshot.
He died from the gunshot wound. That is correct. He died from a few other components.
I'm sorry.
He died from a few other components, but yes, initially from the gunshot wound. That's right. Yeah.
He died from you shooting him.
But you can make that assessment. I mean, you can make that assessment.
I can make that assessment?
You can.
A jury convicted Shadow of manslaughter, and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison, though she didn't serve the full term.
You actually went to trial and were found guilty of manslaughter.
I was.
And you went to prison for a while.
Unjustly, I did.
Okay. So now we got a woman who's the only witness in 2 separate fatal shootings in her own home, 20 years apart. Make it make sense. During her testimony, Shadow tried to downplay her violent past.
There is nothing violent about you.
That's correct. I'm not a violent person.
You're not a violent person.
No, I'm not.
You don't
Unless you
do-
force me to be. No. I protect myself. I believe strong in self-defense.
You don't do acts of violence
No, I'm not a violent person at all.
unless you're forced to be violent. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Forced to be violent like you were in 2001.
That is correct. I was 6.5 months pregnant. Don't you ever forget that now.
The defense also questioned why Shadow hadn't been investigated as a suspect, given that she was the only other adult in the house when Bobby was killed. The detective's response was telling. He was identified by an eyewitness who, being Shadow Robinson. Okay, who else? She was the only one on scene from my knowledge. So, basically, Shadow was the witness. The victim was dead and they took her word for everything. Shadow's testimony took 2 days. And let me tell you, it was messy. When she got to the part about her children being in the house during the shooting, she had a complete meltdown.
I had to secure my babies.
Your children, they were at the home?
Yeah, Spirit loves that man. Anyway, any move he made, he knew that. That baby was on that man's heels. You hear me? He could have killed my fucking baby.
Let's take the jury out.
He didn't give a damn. I trusted him around my kids. I would have never done that to him. I have never disrespected his house, ever. Kids supposed to be alive, and they didn't.
The judge had to stop court and take a recess. The defense asked for a mistrial based on her behavior, but it was denied. After 2 days of deliberations, the jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision. Judge Faye Peterson declared a mistrial, but the prosecutor wasn't giving up.
It's important to note that many people on the jury found that William Edwards did commit this murder. It's important to note that the evidence that was introduced at trial was evidence that showed that William Edwards was on the scene at the time of the murder. It's important to note that the bullets found on Mr. Edwards when he was captured were the same caliber bullets found at the crime scene. The same caliber bullets also found at his apartment. It's important to note that the evidence is still overwhelming that Mr. Edwards committed this crime. And most importantly, it's important for the public to know that the Hinds County District Attorney's Office will not stop. We will try this lawsuit again, we will get a conviction, and we will not stop until justice is done.
The second trial was set for July 2024. But Polo fired his attorney, Tom Forner, the same lawyer who had just gotten him a hung jury on a murder case. His new counsel requested that Judge Peterson recuse herself because live stream coverage of the first trial had led to memes of her facial expressions. I can't make this stuff up. While all this legal drama was playing out, more corruption was being exposed in Jackson. In November 2024, the U.S. Justice Department unsealed indictments charging the Hinds County District Attorney, the mayor of Jackson, and a city council member with participating in a bribery scheme worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even David Archie, the supervisor Polo had feuded with, lost his election and claimed it was due to fraud and corruption. But here's the thing that matters most. In his retrial, William Edwards was found guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 10 years. The community finally got some justice for Bobby Davis. Bobby's Better Men Society continues his work today, operating in 7 chapters across Mississippi and 13 additional states and 2 countries. His legacy lives on through every young man they mentor, every family they help, every life they save. As for Shadow Robinson, she's still out there, and according to some folks in the comments who knew the situation. She's had more drama since then involving family members and violence. And William Napoleon Polo, the cipher gut bucket Edwards, he's currently housed at Tualahe County Correctional Facility, where he'll spend the rest of his life thinking about how his jealousy and obsession cost the community one of its best men. This case shows us something we see too often in our community. Men who talk a good game about being leaders and protectors, but when it comes down to it, they're the ones causing the most damage. Polo spending years on the radio talking about the need for strong Black fathers and positive male role models, then allegedly gunned down the exact type of man he claimed the community needed. The irony is almost too much to handle, but it's also a reminder that we need to pay attention to people's actions, not just their words. Bobby Davis wasn't on social media every day talking about what he was doing. He was just doing it, feeding kids, mentoring young men, cleaning up his neighborhood, saving lives. That's real activism. That's real leadership. And maybe if more of us focused on being the change instead of just talking about it, we'd have fewer tragedies like this one. Rest in power, Bobby Davis. Your work continues and your memory lives on in every life you touched. This has been another episode of Unheard Cries TV. Sometimes the truth is uglier than fiction, but these stories need to be told. Until next time, keep listening, keep caring, and keep fighting for justice in our communities.